2017, The Final Preparation of the Kings and Priests, Chapter 24, Extended Consciousness. One of the things that we must realize is that we're experiencing a life change that no one has really experienced before us. We've spoken many times that we're paving the way. We're entering into levels of change and experience that have not happened before. The cloud of witnesses and those who have died in the faith paved the way for us to enter into this change. And so we're paving the way, and we're learning our way as we go. Everything in this book has to do with the final preparation of the kings and priests. In many ways, it's like going in and taking a last-minute shower before going out to a special event, and you get dressed in your finery and you leave. So the Lord is putting us through the last changes necessary. He is washing us in the water of the Word, washing us in the water of His presence in final preparation. He has already measured and fit us for the robes of righteousness. They're right there on the bathroom door hanging. We step out of the shower and we're clothed, not only with the robes of righteousness, but the promise of resurrection life. The promise is that we will be clothed from on high. We're putting off the garments of the flesh, and we're putting on the robes of righteousness, a new suit of clothes. God is beginning to set our garments out before us, and we're being completed now. It's all very mystical. Without any real deep revelation, it can be hard to identify with what is happening to you during this time. We've talked about being caught up to the throne, Revelations 12. This is happening. There are many things that we should be expecting as we move deeper into the transformation that the Father has for us. One of these changes has to do with an extended consciousness. We know that the Father is omnipresent and omniscient, and that Christ has entered into that. There's an aspect of that which the sons are entering into, and we're still leaning into it because God is still expanding us. We're still writing this book. We're still trying to understand what it is that we're experiencing as we write the last chapters of sonship. God is bringing His sons into a deep level of living in both worlds at the same time, taking it out of the realm of just faith, where you believe you're living in both worlds, to the daily experience of tracking in both worlds at the same time. Your physical body is responding to the intensity, and so you labor through your day. All of these things are very viable and are offshoots of moving into a deeper level of living in both worlds. But another aspect that's happening concurrently is that God is bringing you into what I would call an extended consciousness, where you can be many places at the same time with an awareness of all of them at the same time. Now, that can sound a little interesting because it almost sounds like you're a central computer and you're tracking on different levels, and so different things are feeding back to you. But they're not just from one level or two. They're from a multitude of realms, and this is progressively happening. I would say that it's not an overnight experience because it's something that we have to learn and we have to be able to be brought into as we're able. A lot of the ministry that is facing us both right now and on the other side of this change has to do with the outreach that the sons are to have on so many levels. You could say that we're talking about in many ways is kingdom evangelism. But it's not just about passing out tracts and saving a few souls. It's something that's going out and literally changing multitudes and bringing them into an experience of the kingdom. Kingdom evangelism was never about just evangelizing the word and trying to save a few souls. It is far more expansive. God will bring many people to you who are waiting for change and deliverance, and they will experience sonship as you bring the impartation to them. As this process of ascension continues to happen, we will find that we are living more and more in both worlds. And what that means is that your spirit, soul, and body is in a state of being integrated. Right now, we're a bit dysfunctional. We're not completely integrated. The promise is that he will save us, spirit, soul, and body. That's in the book of 1 Thessalonians. But there's more to it than just that. God is integrating you as a unified being, a spirit that has a body with a redeemed soul. And so it is the entire man. As you begin to break into deeper levels of the release of sonship, this whole issue of an extended consciousness becomes a reality that we have to address, and we will need to deal with more and more. And so my answer to you is, no, you're not going crazy, but God is expanding the tent pegs of your dwelling. I believe that's in Isaiah. He's expanding your ability to track on many different levels at the same time. A lot of the ministry that's going to come forth will be because the sons will be able to move in the Spirit. Not astral projection, which is a product of the soul, but a spiritual, and I'm not going to call it projection, but a spiritual way of functioning that you're able to move, whether it is your entire being or just your spirit. Doesn't really matter. And minister in a broad fashion on many different levels. God is bringing that, and I know many of you have experienced bits and pieces of it. Little breakthroughs here, little breakthroughs there, as God just begins to give you a taste of what is coming. He's preparing you mentally and spiritually for what he wants to bring you into. As I've said before, we're so much further down the road than we know. And that has been shown to us many times. The word has come, you're so much further down the road than you know. And we're still running to catch up with understanding really where we are in God right now. A lot of this has to do with being able to truly let go. We've talked about letting go in different capacities. Letting go of your concepts, your ideas, and your way of thinking so that God can show you a new thing. Letting go so that God can fill you. These are all aspects of what I would call letting go. But there's another part of it too. Just being able to breathe in deeply and breathe out and just disconnect from everything. It's a type of letting go where God can bring you into the next experience that he has for you. I know that some years back I began to study this, and I found that when you entered the theta state, which is the frequency just before deep sleep, that you begin to see and hear beyond the veil. And it's in that type of state that some of these experiences are going to happen or continue to happen. I recall several years ago as I was waiting on the Lord that I fell into this theta state, almost asleep but not quite, almost awake but not quite, that I traveled to England. I recall that I could smell the cobblestones. I could smell the moisture in the air. It was all very tangible. And I was led then to minister to a small group of people. As that completed, I found that through my focus and intent, I could control where I wanted to manifest my consciousness. Did I want to remain there or return back here? It was an interesting experience because oftentimes the Lord has spoken about focus and the importance of focus. We're not just talking about just a basic focus as when you read something where you're kind of focused. No, we're talking about an intensity of focus that transcends the limitations that we've known. Peter and John experienced this type of focus, and this is a good example in Acts 3, verse 4. But Peter, along with John, fixed his gaze on him and said, "Look at us." Now, when they set their gaze on the man just outside the walls of Jerusalem, it says they fixed their gaze and healed the man. That focus in the Greek was called ataniso, and it has to do with an intense, almost violent focus. Literally, ataniso in the Greek means a particle of union. What happened when they cast their gaze? A cord or strand of spirit was extended to the man and conveyed the healing. So focus is more than just a mindset. It's an extension of a spirit reality and involves your spirit. This type of violent focus is one of many things God is bringing forth within the sons and will become part of the reality. It is part of the extended consciousness we're speaking of. We have to understand that we're not looking for a violence of the flesh. It's not a violence of the soul. It's none of that. It's a violence of spirit that God is bringing the sons into. And so a focus of spirit that is so violent and intense that it causes an extension of your spirit or essence to reach out to someone is something that has to be experienced. And this extension is not limited to time or distance. Even though Peter and John were just a few feet away from the man needing healing, this type of focus extension knows no limitation. Someone can be on the other side of the planet. It's not limited. This must be experienced to really be understood. You can't just say, okay, well, I'm going to be violent in my focus. It's something that God brings forth within you so that as you wait before Him, even if just for a moment in time, you can summon this intensity of focus on Him that can literally slice through the limitations, slice through the illusion, slice through the perceived barrier that you think you might have, and really reach in and touch the Lord. This is part of the functioning of the sons of God that He's bringing forth, and is a tool that we use more and more. I've had a number of people come in the Spirit and try to teach me about this violent focus and what could be achieved with it. And I understand that we're talking about something here that is more than just what we know of focus in our definition. We're talking about an aspect of God that is being created within the sons, where you can manifest, you can create, you can do whatever you need. Oftentimes you might ask yourself, well, I'm right here, I'm in the zone, I'm prophesying, I'm believing, I'm creating, I see it, but it doesn't seem to happen. What we create is being created both in the spirit and the natural, and the problem is that sometimes we do not see it at first on the natural plane. Was it created? Yes, but on the spirit plane. As we walk in this violence of focus, then we will see it manifested on this level as well. This violence of focus has a great deal to do with everything that God is bringing the sons into. So let's go back to England for a moment, depending upon where I directed my focus. I found that I could keep my consciousness there, whether it was in England or back here. The aggressive focus was the steering wheel, the method through which you could control where you chose to manifest. We need to work with this issue of a violent focus because it's more important than we understand. And even if we just set our intent to do this, God can meet us halfway and help bring us through this. In many ways, we have experienced the flip side of this, where the negative problems and assaults and illusions and battery of things that come against you can create such a negative focus that the negative focus becomes very intense and very aggressive. So much so that what was a mouse has grown into a roaring lion because of your focus on it, when all it was an illusion. You could even say yes, but there was so much power behind the illusion. It's just power. It's just illusion. Satan can manipulate all of that, and as long as he can get you to respond with a focus on it, then he has achieved his goal. On the flip side, a violent focus set upon the Word and set upon manifesting what you know He has directed you to do is extremely powerful. But it's nothing that can happen overnight. However, it is something that God has been working within the sons for a very long time. I would recommend that you work with this as you're going to bed and resting, as you begin to drift off into that theta state before sleep, or when you wait before Him, quieting yourself. Quiet all of the external confusion and all of the internal fears and come to a place of silence. This is very, very powerful. The power of silence is something that we will also experience more and more. It is in this state of quiet that you can summon up a violent, intense, aggressive focus that can literally blow through the dams and the barriers. Work on it. Visualize it. See it. This is one of the channels that God is using to bring the sons into transformation. And there will be a point where you won't need to work on it because it will be so solidified within you that in a moment of time you can summon what you need and you will be right there. But we're in this transition, as we've said, and this is something we should work on. We have brought words over the years on visualizing and the power of visualizing. We're talking about something very similar here between the aggressive, violent, fixed focus and entering into an atmosphere of absolute silence. As you visualize and see your focus come into play, the atmosphere of absolute quiet or silence is where you can begin to take that which seems like an imagination and bring it into a reality. You can project yourself to wherever it is you see yourself. And even though you have done that in the past and experienced measures of release, it was only the partial. Everything we've walked in has been the partial until now. The day of fullness has come. I know that the more we can give ourselves to this, the quicker this will happen. Start with these three things. First, quiet yourself. Externally, internally, stop the chatter. Stop all of the noise and come into a state of silence. Second, enter into a visualization. And third, reach into that intense, aggressive, and violent focus. You will know you're there when you feel that particle of union extended from you. These are the keys to the power to create and manifest beyond what we've known, and this is where we're headed. At this point in time, before we move into the breakthroughs that will come with the change physically to us, there remains a need for the ministry of the sons to move to another level. And that will greatly be achieved through what we've been talking about. There are places, people, dimensions, and worlds that need to be visited, that need to be released, even prior to the release that we're to enter into. At one point, a young man appeared to me. He was from a different world, and he was very excited to have come and met with me. And he came to say that all of them on the world had been in preparation and training for what was coming, that they would also partake of the end-time judgments and warfare because it was going to affect his level as well. And so he was excited to have made the contact, and they were waiting. Like this young man, there are others where there is still a need for them to be touched, for the preparation to be made complete in them, for what they are to perform during this time. God's creation is magnificent and so beyond what we understand. God has been preparing all of creation for this time, and we have a ministry to help in assisting their completion or readiness. To a large degree, we are doing this. We've had glimpses of it from time to time of what our spirits are doing. But more and more we're going to enter into a real-time experience on every level. Don't forget that we're talking about an extended consciousness. We're talking about God extending the tent pegs of your dwelling. Someone could say, well, that sounds kind of like you're out in space. But we're not talking about that. I know in the New Age movement they talk about being grounded, and we've looked at that over the years. But what we're talking about here is that we only have one tether, and that is in His presence. We have no other tether to this natural plane. Nothing else holds us back, and the Lord can take us where He would. He is our anchor. You recall during the time that Paul was imprisoned in the cell, that he walked in this. Many times he said, when you gather together, there I am with you. If there was a problem in the churches, he would send his Spirit to bring judgment upon that one. Paul moved with a very unique grasp of this extended consciousness. He was able to move and function throughout the churches, even though in body he was limited to the cell. And so even though we may feel limited to this body, or limited to what we feel are circumstances, The truth is that we're not limited whatsoever. God is pulling you up higher and higher, that you might be free to really move and function in the administration of the kingdom prior to the transition. Many years ago, when we used to pastor churches, we would minister to people who were what we would call free spirits. We would help them learn to rein in their spirits, because a free spirit is not locked into your physical body. For the young ladies, being a free spirit was a challenge, because a free spirit can go off and flirt, and they would not understand why all of these young men were being drawn to them. For the sons at this time, your spirits have been freed. This is the starting point to enter into an extended consciousness that God is bringing the sons into. It may feel like you don't even know where you are half the time, but that's because your spirit is free and it's moving. I know how often I have spoken to Anne and said, well, I know we're in the midst of something because I'm not here. And she would say, well, I'm not here either. And I'd say, well, we just need to figure out where we went. And we would laugh. Sometimes it was just hilarious. God is not holding back. He is not waiting for us to catch up. He is pulling us into the ministry of sonship and the administration of the kingdom. We're just playing a little bit of catch-up here as we come into that extended consciousness, that awareness of what we're doing. God has spoken to us a number of times about resurrection life and about the close proximity of resurrection life right now. In one very profound statement, he said, visualize it. See yourself on the other side of this transition. We have worked with this off and on, but it's easier said than done. It could be as simple as the scripture, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. We need to see ourselves in resurrection life. We need to see ourselves on the other side of this transition. This is one of the things that he's required. Don't see yourself as limited. Don't see yourself up against a wall. Don't see yourself in battles without answers or situations that you have no idea what to do. See yourself on the other side of this transition. We recently spoke in one of the other chapters about breaking the bonds with yourself. That God is not only breaking the bonds within you to humanity, to mankind, to your DNA, to your genealogy, but he is bringing a deliverance within the spirit of your mind so that you would stop identifying with yourself as how the carnal mind has seen you and known you. This has been a type of visualizing. On the negative side, we've seen ourselves as this body with limitations and hindrances and impasses, and we haven't realized that we were visualizing that. So we must be careful with our thoughts. The sons have lived with limitations so long that the mind just defaults to that. But that is over. The Lord is saying that is all a lie and that is all an illusion. This is another level that we're letting go of, that we might see ourselves in resurrection life and not with the limitations of the past. This can be called spiritual isometrics. You're exercising your spiritual muscles. Not everyone loves to go to the gym and work out for an hour. There are those that enjoy working out, but the vast majority do not. This is spiritual workout 101, but it has to be done diligently. We could probably put 3 or 4 different titles to this word, and spiritual workout 101 would just be another title. What we're doing is rehearsing the truth in obedience. Since we're going down this path of talking about extended consciousness, let's talk about something else as well. We have spoken about all of creation being comprised of frequency, a vibration, and energy. Each of the sons themselves vibrate at a unique frequency. In many ways, you're like a song to the Lord. Your frequency, your vibration, your energy is like a song. It's more than just what you are as far as a physical manifestation. Reach with me here for a minute. What you are is a song. You are worship. In Romans, it talks about our acceptable service of worship, and this has to do with what we are, not what we do mechanically as far as lifting our hands and singing songs. That is all fine, and that is part of everything, but take it to a deeper level. You are worship. You are a song before the Lord. And you could probably research that throughout the Psalms and find some very interesting scriptures. And the more you change, the more your frequency and vibration change, the more your song changes as you emanate worship to the Lord. For you to live at this point is for you to be a living worship to the Lord. Whether you've had a bad day or a good day, whether you waited upon Him or not, what you are in your essence is an energy, is a vibration, is a frequency, is a song back to Him. A few years back I was shown another level of creativity that is happening within the suns. I saw threads of gold. The threads were sound, and we were weaving reality from these threads. We were like a seamstress taking these golden threads and weaving them. And these sounds, these golden threads, were coming out of the suns. Both the sounds that you make when you open your mouth and the sound of what you are as a sun is creating threads. And we took these threads and began to weave them together to create the reality of what God is speaking that needed to be done. Very mystical, but it goes back to the fact that what you are is so much more than just a finite person. As I said earlier, you are judgment, not the spirit of judgment. You are the Word, not limited to just what you speak audibly. And you are worship, and you are the light. It is very, very mystical what the sons are entering into and what they are beginning to realize. This is just another aspect of what the sons are and have always been. There's always a flip side, and we've spoken of this before as well. The flip side are the dark sounds that are emanating in the earth right now. If you tune into it, you can hear the frequency and the sounds of chaos and judgment, the sounds of war and anger and hatred. All of that is emanating through the consciousness of the people on this planet. And there is simply a megaphone, if you will, for the satanic spirit world behind it. These sounds of darkness are going into the earth. They've been going into the earth for some time with the intent to create illusion, deception, despair, war, you name it. The counteraction of that are the sons. They are the sounds of light and the sounds of righteousness. They are the sounds that are creating dominion and authority, the sounds that are heralding the release of what God has for this time. It is very interesting what is happening. The sounds have been increasing both negatively in the earth plane, but as well as the sons begin to manifest, what they are is beginning to resonate through the heavens. And the book of Psalms is a great passage I've always liked, and it goes, "With each new day, a new song is sung." As you arise each day, realize that you're different. You're not the same person you were the prior day, for we are in a time of accelerated change, and the suns are changing daily. You may not be able to quantify it. You may not be able to discern it, but it's happening. And every day that you rise, a new song is sung by virtue of what you are and are becoming to the Lord. We've covered a lot of ground with this word, and it's only the tip of the iceberg, because the extended consciousness that is happening to you is only going to increase. It is part of sonship, and there are so many aspects to it. What you're doing is affecting every level of life, and it's far more than we've understood. God is bringing you into a deeper level of understanding that you might be able to move more fluidly into the administration of sonship during this time. You are not limited. God has freed you. It is just your mind that needs to catch up and realize what He's already done. So we let go. We let go and let the deepening experience of consciousness happen to us. God is expanding our consciousness, and we will experience more and more what it means to live in both worlds at the same time. We just need to learn how to process the information as it comes to us from different realms and different levels. It may seem like I'm speaking ahead of myself, like we're not quite there, but I can tell you that this is not only coming and to be expecting, but to a large degree, it is here. We need to recognize the mystery that is at work within us and give ourselves to the process.